Hello, my name is Dr. Eunice Menja. I have a Doctor of Philosophy in Community Resource Management. I also studied my master's degree in Human Development and Family Science from Oklahoma State University. I decided later on after my MSc and working for some time with different organizations that I wanted to become a life coach. I have done a lot of developmental psychology, teaching, general psychology, and many other courses that are related to my field here in the US, of course. And I would say that when I decided to get my licensure in marriage and family therapy, I didn't realize how tough this exam was. So besides going back to do some more graduate courses, I found out that many people are saying that this exam is very, very hard. But you know what? I trust in God. I know that I can do it. So I want to welcome you, first of all, to my YouTube channel. I'm excited to have you join me as I take you through the strategic family therapy model. So today's presentation could help you and I prepare for the marriage and family therapy exam. I'm going to be taking my exam probably around April. We're going to try to deepen our understanding of this theory together. So join me. Whether you are here to learn or simply seek valuable information, I assure you it's going to be fun. So let's get started and discover how to optimize your family dynamics effectively if you're here as a family, as a couple. And before I talk about or I begin my presentation, I really want to encourage you to be an active part of my community here on YouTube. I want you to share your thoughts, questions, any feedback that you may have in the comment section. I want to utilize my YouTube channel to help people that don't get a chance or an opportunity to go to school to learn what we do. I come from Kenya, and I know that this would be something that someone can use even back in Kenya without having to go to school, just to help themselves. So don't forget to give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and consider subscribing to my channel for more exciting content like this. I also use my channel for teaching courses, some of the courses that I teach, whether it is distant learning. So as a college lecturer, I have found that teaching these theories, rather than just sitting down and trying to cram the content for my exam, is going to help me retain the information better. So I'm sharing this for you and also for me. This adventure isn't just about learning. It's about mastering the material in a way that it can stick. We're getting older, and we know that a lot of people are, forgetting things much more than before. So here we go. So strategic family therapy can be a good tool, not just for the MFTs or people who are trying to do the exam, but also for even other counseling fields. So I know you would like to know where I'm getting the information from that I'm about to present on strategic family therapy. This information is drawn from so many sources, from various sources, including lecture notes that I had in graduate school at my alma mater, Oklahoma State University. Woohoo! I got my master's degree from there, so you might hear a lot if you ever gone back, to that school, as well as materials from University of Cameron, Cameron University, and Mid-American Christian University. I have been back there to take additional graduate courses for my MFT path, which was required by the state of Oklahoma. And I have also incorporated my teachings from my own experiences and articles that I might have come across on this theory. But today I'm also referencing the textbook that I'm using. It is called the National Licensing Exam for Marriage and Family Therapy. It's the second edition by Dr. Lucas Volini, which I obtained from Amazon. It's a key source to really complement my understanding while I'm preparing for this exam. It is recommended highly by a lot of people, so I said, what? Let me just buy it, because it's been a long time since I ever, was in class. So, let's go here. So the class of family therapy. So I want you to think as therapy as a magic recipe for better relationships in your home. So today I have the honor of introducing you to the founders or the contributors or the main contributors of this theory, which is the strategic family theory or therapy. So Jay Haley and Chloe Madens were husband and wife. These brilliant minds are the ones behind this approach. That's why I'm saying that this presentation is not just for learning about the model for passing the exam. I would also like you to take part of bringing real solutions to real families. And this is what this couple did. That's why they're very known for the work that they have done. This model is one of the first models that were developed from ground up. Strategic family therapy is known as a cornerstone of the classical schools of family therapy. That strategic family therapy emerged in the 1950s and 1960s, primarily through the work of Jay Haley and his colleagues at the Mental Research Institute, which we often call the MRI in California. So this approach was a response to the need for brief and effective, yet helpful intervention that were needed to address specific family issues with a very short time frame. So this approach has been pioneered by, as I said, by Jay Haley and his wife Chloe Madens. But there are obviously other contributors that have played a role in this. Unlike some of the approaches that evolved from individual therapy techniques, strategic family therapy was specifically crafted to address the complexities of family dynamics. So Haley and Chloe played pivotal roles in shaping this approach, emphasizing the importance of strategic intervention and practical solutions in resolving family conflicts. So their work laid the foundation for a methodology that remains influential in the field of family therapy to this day. So as we explore the therapy or the strategic family therapy further, please keep in mind its distinguished place in the history of family therapy. So that's why we are calling it classical, because it's also one of the founding theories, and many other things that have come out from what the work that they have done. So let me introduce to Jay Haley. Something else that you might want to know is that Jay Haley studied at Stanford University. He worked closely with other pioneers in family therapy, such as Don Jackson, Gregory Bateson at the MRI or the Mental Research Institute. This experience at Stanford, particularly his collaboration with Bateson, significantly influenced his understanding of communication theory and its application to family therapy, so ultimately shaping the development of strategic family therapy. So later, Haley would break from the MRI group. He went to work under Salvador Minuchin for approximately, some sources will say 10 years, approximately 10 years at the Child Guidance Clinic. So Salvador Minuchin was a renowned family therapist known for his work in structural family therapy. So he emphasized the importance of family structure and dynamics in therapy, he pioneered innovative approaches to restructuring dysfunctional family patterns influencing generations of therapists like Jay Haley. So no wonder the noticeable similarities that we're going to be, seeing to Haley's work from Salvador's work. So due to Salvador's influence, strategic family therapy is interested in the family structure, family lifestyle, and problematic hierarchy perspectives. So with strategic family therapy being similar with MRI, by that it is strategic family therapy is brief, it utilizes a strategic approach, and it is also problem and solution focused. Now, Haley learned a lot from working with Salvador. Haley was taught to look at families in a certain way. Just like when you learn from a teacher, you start to think like them. So because of that, because of what Salvador taught Haley, Haley now looks at families in a way that is similar to how his teacher did. One of the things Haley learned from Salvador being the strategic family therapy, which is to mean having a plan to help families. Haley's theory is interested in how families are put together, how they grow and change, and when there are problems, who is usually in charge? Is it the children? Is it the parents? So strategic family therapy is not like what Haley had been used to doing when he worked with an MRI group. Both are quick. They have a plan to solve problems, and they focus on finding the problem and fixing it. So even though Haley learned from a different teacher, he still added some of the same ideas in his work with strategic family therapy. So we are going to look at the key concepts, and we are going to start with directives. So directives being specific directions given to the couple or individuals to complete a specific task. These tasks are not quite linear solutions to the presenting problem as compared to cognitive therapy. The tasks in this case are meant to perturb or disturb or disrupt or shake the system's negative interaction patterns and help create new interaction patterns within the family. What Haley intended by directives was to get people out of the rabbit hole, which is the old habits or patterns of behavior that were unproductive but were hard to change without intervention because they had been used to these patterns that were unproductive. So the family might have to so this family might have to say, wanting Haley to help them get out of this huge mess, while all that was needed was the smallest change possible. So in this case, a strategic therapist gives the couple a directive that targets that problematic interaction pattern in order to interrupt the pattern and change the same pattern so positive behavior change can be realized within that interaction. So directives interrupt the negative interaction sequence in some way. For example, in the case of too much argument between couples or between parents and children, a therapist would direct the couple to argue in the presence of the therapist. Like if you're in my office, I want you guys to argue in front of me. If I am your therapist, I want you, the strategic therapist, wants them to argue. So it gives them, he or she gives the directive or direct the couple to argue in front of the therapist, so the therapist can be able to see how they argue. So to make this clear for anyone, directives are like specific tasks given to families or individuals that are supposed to change their normal routine of doing things. Okay, so unlike straightforward solutions that are offered in CBT or cognitive therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, strategic tasks or also known as directives, are supposed to help the family change their old ways of talking to each other, and also encourage them so that they can form new behaviors or maybe new communication skills or new ways of solving conflict. Haley was focused on helping the family break free from old habits. That's what he was really doing. So, which should be focused on pulling families out of those unproductive habits or behaviors that were hard to change before therapy. Haley believed that even a tiny change in the interaction pattern would actually bring a huge difference in solving the problem that they brought to therapy. Going back to the argument scenario, imagine a family where a daughter always argues with her mother, and then Haley might ask the mother or the wife, what is your husband doing when you and your daughter are arguing? So that would be something really to learn about, what usually occurs when there's an argument or when there's a conflict. Then the therapist might say to the mother and daughter, okay, let's have you both argue right here in my office. This will definitely interrupt their usual argument routine and puts the therapist in charge. This is where the therapist acts as the judge in a courtroom, kind of like hitting a pause on a movie in order to relight the movie script for a better ending. So let's see how they interact so that I can walk with them through this process of changing this behavior. Okay, so the second concept is going to be ordeal therapy. Haley used another concept called ordeal therapy, prescribing for the couple to engage in an argument, but this time the couple has to do something odd. Okay, this is where the word ordeal therapy is, and this is really my understanding of ordeal therapy. So the couple had to do something odd, and that something would be like, okay, you want to argue, guys, and you want to argue in my office or even in your living room. I want you, before you start to argue, rearrange your living room furniture so that furniture can actually mirror a courtroom, because who wants to argue in a living room? So you might as well just convert your living room to a courtroom, because that argument has to be, someone has to be the judge, and in this case would be the therapist, such that preparing for that argument that has just been described using the directive is going to create more work for the couple that they would have to if they chose not to argue at all. Does that make sense? So then in this case, a strategic therapist sets up a tougher challenge to help them change their maladaptive behavior. And the maladaptive behavior in this case would be the arguing. So this is technically also a paradoxical challenge. The key point being that this challenge makes it much harder to keep up with the maladaptive behavior than to change it. So if he say that if every time you have to argue, this is what I want you guys to do, of course it puts them in a very awkward, and Haley came up with the ordeal therapy ordeal therapy paradoxical directive, because it would place the couple in that awkward situation. So imagine every time you have to argue, maybe with your spouse or your child, but before the argument begins, you have to do this awkward job or this odd job or this odd task. You have to turn your living room into a courtroom. Weird, right? That's very, very weird. That's what makes it ordeal. Just for maybe if you want to remember those concepts, that's why I'm bringing up some of these words. So think about two parents raising a teenager, whereby arguments always happen during bedtime. Teenagers want to argue about bedtime or TV limit. They don't want to go to sleep. So a strategic therapist prescribes that they can continue arguing at the same time. I can already hear Haley saying to this family, okay, I want you to keep arguing, but remember to set up your room like a courtroom. What do you think that the couple would choose? To argue, or do you think the teenager would choose to rearrange the sit in the living room or would choose to go to bed or maybe turn off the TV. So another fun one I have heard through studying for the exam, telling a teenager that likes to fight, fight staying in bed, doesn't want to sleep, want to be on their phone, like they say that they are lacking sleep and they want to wake up. So Haley would tell this teenager, okay, you don't feel like sleeping, you mean you are losing sleep at night, so how about you waking up at night and mopping the entire house the time that you are sleepless? Anytime you lack sleep, you just get up and take the mop and the bucket and mop the whole house. Suddenly, mopping the house or rearranging the furniture is going to become a tougher ordeal duty to do. It's very complicated. It's a hassle. So who want to do that? So the kid or the teenager is going to choose to stay in bed and not complain about losing sleep. So the easier choice will be staying in bed and not mopping or not arguing with anybody because everybody's going to be at peace. And that's how you master this concept. That's how I mastered this. I try to master this concept. Okay, so the next concept, you're going to talk about paradoxical intervention. So another technique used in strategic family therapy where the therapist directs family members to continue with their symptomatic behavior. So Haley would say, if the couple conforms to continuing the symptomatic behavior, then they are admitting that the behavior has more control over them. However, if they rebel, that is, do not to continue with their behavior, giving up that behavior, then they are choosing to give up that behavior because they don't think the behavior has control over them. This is considered a seemingly illogical intervention to bring about change. It is like the therapist telling the family to keep doing what's causing them trouble. So I came here to my office, Haley. I want you to help my family to stop arguing. And then Haley would look at them and say, how about you continue arguing? So let me restate this with a twist. If the couple is in therapy follows what the strategic therapists say, they will be admitting that the problem controls their relationship, exposing the secondary gain they get from the maladaptive behavior. And if they resist, most likely they will give up the maladaptive behavior because it is not gaining them anything. A real life example would look like this. Imagine a family where a teenager always stays out late. So the therapist might say, okay, you can keep staying out late. If the teen or the teenager listens to the therapist and continues to come home late, it shows they're letting their behavior control them. In this case, parents might have been fighting with their teenager, telling them don't come home late because we care about your school. We want you to be able to to have enough time, ample time to complete your homework, study for your exams. If the teenager follows a therapist intervention whereby he says, okay, so the paradoxical intervention and therapist said, you keep fighting. Don't fight your parents over the curfew. Continue coming home as late as you like. The teenager then will experience the impact of coming home late firsthand, which helps him to maybe gain insights into the irrationality of his lateness and the limitations it imposes on his school performance. But if the teenager rebels what his family therapist prescribes, he will start coming home earlier, letting go of the troublesome behavior, dishonoring the curfew that the parents had set. It's like using reverse psychology to encourage change in a strange way. I remember growing up hearing my mom always say this. she would say something like, when I come home this evening, I want to find you and your brother, because we used to fight, my brother and I used to fight. I want to find you and your brother having killed each other. The day she said that, I would keep away from fighting, because I gained the insight that my mom viewed our fighting in such a harsh way. She almost thought that you're gonna kill each other. So that really made me, she didn't say don't fight. She said, you keep fighting and kill each other. So by the time I come home, you'll be dead, you know. Rest in peace, my mama. That's a lot of African parents say that. A lot of African. I didn't realize this is what the paradoxical intervention meant, until I read what Haley's work was all about. So the next concept is unbalancing. This is an intervention that is also shared with structural family therapy. Remember the Salvador or Minuchin effect. A strategic therapist is supposed to side with one family member over the others. Okay, so what are you talking about here, Haley? This was meant to disrupt the homeostasis. Remember, homeostasis is the norm, and encourage change at both the behavioral and the structural level. So we want to disrupt this homeostasis, this stability. Haley was like, okay, let's use unbalancing to start things up in this structure. You know, everybody seems comfortable in this, in the status quo. How do we change this interaction, because it's not healthy? Almost like trying to tip the weighing scales achieved by the therapist supporting one family member in some issues, not all, but I would think that you have to also be very careful on what you support, so that you can also continue remaining neutral, or not triangulated. Shaking up the stability of the negative interaction instead of keeping things steady, that homeostasis. The therapist creates a little chaos in order to spark change. You see what it does. It disrupts the family usual or regular ways of behaving and how they have they're organized. So how I made some little cute photos to kind of like describe what I'm talking about, and I used AI to create these pictures or images. How does this look like in a therapy room? Imagine a family where parents are always arguing about the type of discipline to use when their 10-year-old child throws a tantrum. So one parent says, we take away the phone. The other parent disagrees and says, we just put the child on timeout. But really, maybe the second or the first option hasn't been working. So the strategic therapist might side more with one parent that is saying, I think you're right about taking the phone away. So this is with an intention to throw off the balance in order to encourage the family to rethink how they handle discipline and to stop arguing about it, because this is not about who is right and who is not right. It is really about helping this child that is throwing a tantrum. It's like trying on a new pair of glasses to see the world in a fresh way. In this case, the world is a discipline method that the parents are using, and the child who is causing trouble to make positive changes, which is stop throwing tantrum, kiddo. I wish I had done MFT before when I was raising my kids. I keep saying that because now my kids are, too grown for some tricks like this one. Okay, so we're going to the next, let me take a glass of water because I've been talking a lot. Okay, so we're going to be looking at aligning with parental generation. This aligning technique is directed at strengthening the parental hierarchy and reinforcing that parents are in charge of the family system. And in this case, the children, the family system, or the parents being in charge of their children. What a strategic therapist does is that he or she It's trying to break the neutrality and intentionally align with the parental subsystem with the parental generation. So think about, nowadays, when I was growing up in my family, we didn't argue, sometimes when I feel like, raising children, especially this generation, or even as an immigrant in America, when we are raising our children in this country, of course, children have a lot of, they're empowered, they have a lot of rights, and sometimes it looks like, you can miss to see that, you can miss to see that difference. There is a difference. The parental hierarchy needs to be reinforced, and this is what Haley is talking about. I'm going to side with the parents because they are in charge. This parental alignment technique will eventually boost parental authority, and the children come to understand it. So the therapy is aligning with them to empower them. It's like the therapist joining forces with the parents to remind the children who is in charge in this home, which can be looked at as empowering the parental leadership. Therapist is no longer neutral in this case. He or she takes the parent's side to strengthen or empower their position as the leaders of the family. I think that this is a cool concept. This is a cool technique to use in therapy, because a lot of times it's when you have, children that are not listening to their parents and they need guidance, and sometimes parents feel helpless. So Jay Haley, came up with this idea. So real life example would be like, imagine a family where the kids always challenge their parents' decisions. I hear that sometimes from my 25 year and 21 years old. In my case, our family therapist might say to us this, might say to my children, girls, I understand you're adults now, but I tend to agree with your parents, that your parents should still make some rules on what you do when you visit home. You still have to leave the dishes clean. You still have to leave your bedrooms clean before you return to college. What our therapist does in this case, he or she makes my husband and I feel more confident in our roles as parents. And that is very satisfying. It's like giving our parental power back to us. We don't overpower our children, we don't abuse them, but sometimes they need guidance. So let's look at reframing. The other concept in strategic family therapy is reframing, which means providing or creating an alternative perspective for the family member's view on the other person's problematic behavior. So this reframing technique is like putting on different glasses to see things in a new light. It's about offering a fresh way of looking at family members' troublesome behavior. So imagine changing on your glasses that you are used to before to interpret your spouse's or your child's behavior. That means instead of seeing the behavior as a problem, reframing finds a positive angle to it to explain why the bad behavior is occurring. So let's turn the tables with an example. So imagine a kid who is getting detention or punishment for always interrupting in the classroom, and instead of scolding or punishing them for their maladaptive behavior in class, a strategic therapist might say, "Hey, John, it looks like you're really excited to share your ideas with your classmates." And this might shift the focus from the interruption being rude to the child who is probably trying to share something important. It's like finding a silver lining in a cloudy situation to bring relief to the family. Maybe the parents were worried that their child is getting detention, is getting punished at school because they look like they're interrupting the class, but the therapist might just give it a twist, give it a turn. so that the parents can actually see that this is might not necessarily be a negative behavior, might be the child is always excited, and maybe there is a way that the parents can actually intervene in the classroom instead of punishing the child or putting the child on timeout. um, I want to talk about the presenting problem as a metaphor as one of the other concepts. This is also one concept that really touches my heart because of many reasons. Haley, or the technique, Haley referred to the symptom as a metaphor of a larger problem within the family system, such as little John wetting his bed being a metaphor for keeping focus on him in order for dad to maintain his addiction to alcohol. So, how does this metaphor technique work? So, in strategic family therapy, Haley would use metaphors to use the family members understand, or to help the family members understand some of the symptoms. Like, we see how we have John who is wetting the bed even though he is in middle school. That would then come, they would come to therapy because they need help. They want to know what is going on. They want to know how they can help little John. Almost like saying the identified problem is a symptom for something bigger going on within the family. So the therapist should be able, excuse me, the therapist should be able to help families see beyond the surface. So instead of just focusing on the obvious behavior, which is, the child is wetting the bed or John is throwing a tantrum every night before bed, they might dig deeper to find what it really represents in that particular family. Just like when when you're told to read in between the lines of a story in order to uncover the actual message. So in this case, we have a child called Casey throwing tantrum, as instead of thinking about how we need to fix the tantrum issue with therapy, a strategic therapist might divert the attention from Casey by saying, maybe Casey's throwing tantrum is showing us that mom's attention is always on her, so dad can keep his focus on his alcohol addiction. So can you imagine where the child is like, the mom is always pestering the dad, you need to stop, you need to stop, you need to stop drinking, you need to concentrate on to help me put up the kids to bed and things like that. So instead of mom focusing on dad, the child is like, okay, I'm gonna throw a tantrum so mom can leave dad alone. This helps the family see Casey's tantrum as a sign of a bigger problem needing attention. So we are going to decode the hidden message within the family story to bring about change in dad's addiction. And yeah, so and the next we're going to the next one. The next key concept: pretend to have a symptom. So pretend to have a symptom is often used during the assessment stage, which is still a form of paradoxical intervention. So Chloe Madens is the one who would instruct a child to pretend to have a symptom. Then she would instruct or give, a directive or a guide to the parent on how to help the parent through that symptom that the child just pretended to have. So let's make this clear and maybe memorable for the exam. Perhaps for getting ready for the exam like I am doing. So how does this pretend symptom technique work? In strategic family therapy, pretending to have a symptom is a tool that is used during assessments, whereby something unexpected is done during assessment in order to uncover something, kind of like putting on a show, which is the therapist would tell one of the children to act and have a symptom, but not leave them hanging. I want your child to throw a tantrum, but I'm not going to help. That's not how it was like that. It was. So this is going to help uncover the hidden dynamics in the family. Imagine that children are always yelling and or talking back to one of the parents. The therapist might ask them to pretend so that they can see how that how that interaction looks like, like what exactly do they do when the child starts yelling at mom, what does dad do. So you would let the parents handle that issue, as it helps to reveal underlying issues. So dad might just be quiet, but the therapist would still come back and fix that mess, and help um, them create another way of guiding the child, or redirecting the child. Therapist fixes this by guiding the parents on how to handle the children differently than how they were used. So it's like, having a wedding rehearsal. Let everyone mess up walking down the aisle, but still show them how to do it right, so that they can be ready for the next day. In this case, learning the family dynamics. How did dad handle the kids when they started yelling at mom? So she would just observe. What did mom do? Did she try to calm the child down? Did she escalate or de-escalate the situation? So those are some of the dynamics that will be observed during the assessment stage, so that during the intervention or the treatment, that can be one of the goals, to help them know how to handle it next time. So we're talking about the other concept being incongruous hierarchy. This is where children create symptoms in an attempt to help their parents. This is not when they are asked to do it. This is them choosing to do it. This was also used by Haley and Madens in the assessment process, by attempting to understand when the incongruous hierarchy might be present, such that it would inform the due course for therapy. Let's just simplify this, because of those who are doing the exam and somebody maybe who doesn't understand what this really means. It is to examine the readiness, or anyone that may want to use, help you use this in your counseling. Incongruous hierarchy in strategic family therapy is believed that sometimes kids develop symptoms to try to help their parents, with coming up with a change. Also, for detecting family dynamics, and it guides the direction of therapy moving forward. So, would be an example would be, so without, I don't want you to confuse this with a metaphor. A child who starts acting out whenever their parents argue. In this case, a younger sibling frequently acts out and misbehaves whenever the parents are arguing. So the younger sibling's disruptive behavior is an attempt to interrupt or diffuse the conflict between the parents. So by drawing attention to themselves through misbehavior, the child may hope to distract the parents from maybe their fighting, or prevent it from escalating further. After understanding this incongruous hierarchy, strategic therapists should tailor their approach to address underlying family dynamics. For those who want to remember this very well, so think of incongruous hierarchy as a code word within the family dynamics. When cases start exhibiting symptoms to change their parents, it's like they are sending a signal that says, hey, something is not quite right here. Let's switch things up. Whether it's headaches, tantrum, or children are, throwing tantrum or throwing stuff across the room, asking for the phone, or food, or becoming a mini superhero during parental disputes, kids have some pretty creative ways of getting their message across. It's time to change, in the interaction between mom and dad. Hey, stop fighting, guys. We're here. Can't you see? So next time you notice your child throwing a tantrum, hint, hint, when you are busy on your phone, remember, it might be their way of nudging you to get up your parenting game. Let's decode those family dynamics together and rewrite the script for happier, healthier household. After all, who needs a reality TV when you've got the real life drama right at home with your teenagers and your toddlers, and of course your pets? Okay, so we are going to metaphoric task. So the next concept here is metaphoric task. I will not cover all the strategic family therapy tasks. There are many, especially in the Volini book. If you wanna purchase that, if you haven't already, it has a lot more tasks, more concepts. I mean, more concepts, which means that the strategic therapist engages the family in a conversation or activity that is easier than discussing the identified problem directly. So the family is, may engage through metaphor indirectly, which is said to contribute to trying to resolve the actual problem. Metaphor represents a problem within the family dynamics, that is probably too difficult or maybe too sensitive or maybe a little bit too shameful, especially for some cultures. I can see where this can really be helpful for even African families where people don't talk about sexual matters a lot. So by discussing it through a metaphor, it can really help. So I want to break this down because it's important to me and people in my culture. So a metaphoric task is a strategic family therapy. In strategic family therapy is like a sneaky way to tackle that tough issue during therapy. I remember when my grandmother would give me a lot of tales. By the way, I have written a book called Never Forget Us. It's in Amazon. And another book called, The Secrets of Winning. I have really narrated some of the stories that I think that would be considered metaphoric tasks by my grandmother. She would teach me a lesson, but she would use metaphors, or maybe tell me to do something like it would be a metaphoric task because she would tell me do this, but she's actually teaching me how to be a good wife when I grow up. So let's say the metaphoric task is really like symbolic. We can use conversations, we can use images, you can use you can tell the couple to do something that help the family and the therapy discuss something else that is similar to the problem, but not that problem at that moment because everybody is uncomfortable. And because of my African culture, there are so many code words that are used, which I would call them metaphors, in a way that's more comfortable for everyone. For example, so a strategic therapist would set up a scene, identify the garden to talk about an issue that is too hard for Sarah and Alex, who probably just got married, to simply be able to discuss their sexual life or their romance in front of the therapist. So the therapist might say, I want you guys to envision your relationship as your flower garden that has overgrown weeds. Each plant in your garden represents an aspect of your romantic life together. So visualize this garden and describe its state. So this is a conversation. They can be doing an activity, they can be drawing, they can be writing it down what they are envisioning. And then you would ask, are there vibrant flowers that you're seeing tangled with weeds? How does this reflect your romantic journey? Now, you can focus on the tangled areas of your garden. So the tangled areas are going to represent this very difficult topic that we are unable to unveil here. That is the unresolved issues surrounding your romantic relationship. Now, I would like you to work as a team to untangle these weeds. This is Haley saying, I can see Haley saying this to, Sarah and Alex, to symbolize your commitment to address your intimate issues that you haven't been able to address. Once your flower garden is cleaner, discuss how you will be able to nurture new growth and strengthen your romantic bond. And because Sarah and Alex had shared with the therapist that discussing intimacy has been very difficult for them, so the metaphoric conversation could have been an actual activity or a conversation that they are having in therapy room. So they are not alone. Many couples avoid this topic like a thorny bush. For those practicing marriage, family and marriage therapy and trying to help your clients, I hope you also see as your couples work together to untangle the weeds in their flower garden, they will start to open up about their fears and desires, which should eventually clear the path for healthier communication and deeper connection in their romantic relationships. All right. So now the elephant in the room. All right. It's assessment process. So we've talked about all the techniques, we've talked about the concepts, we've talked about the language, and I think you see how this whole therapeutic approach is influenced by Haley's Haley's education, which was in communication from Stanford. So now we got the concept. How do we go about the assessment process? In the strategic family therapy, assessment process is definitely more flexible than structured MRI, structured than an MRI approach. Haley and Chloe stressed the importance of starting therapy on the right foot for a successful outcome. Maybe there is a question that is going to come in your exam when you're doing it that will say therapy starting well if it is to end well. That is Jaylee who said that. Haley talks of the four stages of the first session. So when you're having the first session, you're going to do this in 4 stages. If your clients, if you have your clients in the room that day you are doing assessment, you're going to do it in 4 stages. That's what he's talking about, especially the first session. And this is how this first session is fragmented. So the first step is called the social stage. So in this stage, therapist is going to focus on building rapport and making the client feel comfortable in the office. And I can see Haley asking them, how was the traffic? If you are in an African country, maybe how was the traffic jam? How did you get here? Did you walk? Did you ride a motorbike? He might be asking if you're in the US, is it snowing? Are the roads clear? If it's winter, I can hear such type of language. So this is during the social stage. Then the second step is called the problem stage. So in this problem stage, each family member shares their perspective on the issue that brought them to therapy. And that would be starting with the dad. So Haley would say, okay, let's talk about the problem. How do you see this problem? What is your perspective on it? Who is a problem here? And this is to say, I want to make sure that I hear from everyone. Okay, remember during this time he's also observing. So that is what he's doing in the third step, called the interaction stage. In this stage, so therapist is going to observe the family dynamics, and he's not going to interrupt. He's going to be noting down the patterns. Who is in alliance with the other? Is dad and mom, in one coalition or alliance? Is dad and son, things like that. Who is in charge here? Who finishes everybody's statement? Who is rolling their eyes when the other people are talking? So this is what Jaylee is actually looking at, because remember, this is what is going to fix at the end. So finally, the fourth stage of the first step is called goal setting stage. I think this is important. So in this stage, it's a combined effort for therapy and even the family. Okay, so the family was doing the talking. Haley was observing. Now this time they're gonna do the goal setting stage, which is the fourth step of the first session. It's a little bit confusing, but I hope that you understand. So the 4 stages of first session consist of social stage, problem stage, interaction stage, and now the goal setting. So in summary, what is going to happen is that because now it's a combined effort, it's not just the therapist saying, the therapist is going to say, so what did you do to try and solve this? What have you tried? What are some of the solutions that you have brought to here and they have failed? And also focus on maybe on small changes for success while trying to utilize the directives. In summary, the family has come to the office, and of course, they need help. So they have to figure out how this is gonna be done. And I want to go to the next one to say who is involved in therapy. In strategic family therapy, just like MRI, only a few members are typically involved. Sometimes it is usually just 1 or 2 people that are needed to attend therapy. And if more than 2, it's the members of the family that actually are directly tied to the identified problem. So you don't have to bring John if he has nothing to do with the problem that, if it's, Dean wetting the bed, you don't have to bring John. You don't have to call John out of school because Dean is wetting the bed. You can be in therapy, and, Haley doesn't care so long as, John is not involved. He just wants Haley to be there. He just wants John to be in there if Dean is not involved, and vice versa. But he also insisted that both parents needed to participate in therapy. That is very, very important. Both parents needed to participate in therapy. And I can see why, because, if you're talking about all these structural things and the language, metaphors, you need both parents in therapy, of course. Okay. So we're gonna talk about treatment of duration. I don't know if you can see my hourglass over there, that is showing the Milan and strategic and MRI. They are very significant on there when I put them, is to say that even though strategic family therapy is referred to as brief, treatment isn't as short as MRI. So you can see, MRI therapy. However, strategic family therapy is shorter than Milan therapy. That means strategic family therapy falls somewhere in between Milan and MRI, if that makes sense. Okay? So we're gonna talk about goals of therapy. So let's talk about the most important part of this presentation, which I think is a goal. Everything is going to point to the goal. Why are we here? Why are we paying money? Why are we paying our therapist money to be in this office? Because we want to achieve goal. In strategic family therapy, the main goal of therapy is to change how family members interact with each other. Therapy aims at relieving symptoms and reshape the family structure, especially the parent-child hierarchy. So you got it? So goal of therapy. How do we achieve the small changes that we want? How do we relieve the symptoms? It is by making sure that the family structure is shaped the way it is supposed to be, and the parent-child hierarchy is obviously definite. We know who is in charge in a home. We know who has parental authority. It's not the children have the parental authority. It is the parent, the subsystem have more authority. So imagine a family where the parents constantly argue and the kids act out all the time. So therapist's goal might be to help the parents communicate better and establish clear rules, reduce conflict, and improve the how the relationship is between daughter, son, or and mother, son. It's like rewiring the family dynamics to create a healthier and happy environment for all. That is a good goal. That's a good goal. So it's not complicated, that one you can remember. So before I come to an end, I thought that I would draw this for you to kindly see, to kind of see what happens in the end. What happens in the end, how the story ends. This is how the story ends. For this presentation, we all know that there is something called strategic humanism, and I have not covered it under this presentation. But I wanted you to know, because Chloe Madden's eventually broke off from Haley. They started together, husband and wife, but she broke off. She created her own brand, which is now referred to as strategic humanism. It might carry a different name, but it maintains a lot of principles from strategic family therapy. Actually, in the textbook, you have a lot of overarching those concepts and techniques. Strategic humanism was aimed to increase family members' ability to soothe and love, as opposed to attempting to gain control over one another. So Haley was, because of his influence with Salvador, Minuchin, family, parents need to have control and children have to receive the directions. Hashi says, what? We want to increase members' ability to soothe and love. Everybody needs to feel soothed and loved and cared for. Chloe Madden's is said to have considered a more goal-oriented model that views love and happiness as appropriate goal of therapy. So it is not about reshaping those structures, making parents in charge and things like that. So her goal was to make sure that everybody in the home feels happy, loved, and that would be the goal of the strategic humanism. And that is a wrap. Folks, I hope you have enjoyed the ride with me into this therapy, and I hope that everything I have taught today, for the sake of MFT, I will never forget. I know I will forget, because my brain is not a computer. It's a computer, but I have messed it up with a lot of age and stuff. But I'm just hoping that I don't have to struggle, because I have taught you. I have also taught myself. And even if I pass my exam, I can see myself using this therapy a lot, this model a lot. So remember the power to transform relationships and create lasting change. That power lies within you and within me, within each one of us. So before you go, I would love to hear your thoughts. May you drop a comment down below and let me know if you would like to see an independent presentation on the strategic humanism theory. What Chloe did in her brand. Okay, I will definitely get to all the other models, Bowen. I will do the structural. I'm gonna do Gottman slowly by slowly, and I can get there before my exam in April. Your feedback will definitely motivate my passion to share these models with the students that are starting, whether it is in undergraduate or graduate school. Thank you so much for tuning in or for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed my accent. As I said, I grew up in the US, in Kenya, and moved to the US when I was already an adult. When I went to college. Liking will be helpful. Subscribing to my channel will be more helpful, so that you can know whenever I post the other videos. And I hope that my examples were great for you to grasp the concept, but more importantly, you helped me study. Thank you so much. Your support means the world to me. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and be a servant. Thank you.